Hey everybody, how are ya? It's a rainy Sunday, kind of yucky outside. It's funny too because it was actually warm earlier, at least it was here in New York where I am currently located. And perfect day for a movie, a rainy day movie, which is exactly where I just came back from. I will say it was a little somber for me too because I have canceled my Alamo season pass. I've previously griped on this channel in the past about my issues with some of the choices that Alamo has made as a company and how it has affected their various locations. I know that it's not all the fault of the Alamo Draft House, but my season pass expires tomorrow, and I decided to step outside of my comfort zone today and see a movie that everybody in my feed, my social feed, my on my Facebook network, everybody's talking about Godzilla Minus One, and they have been. And I'll tell you, I have only before today, I had only ever seen one Godzilla movie. Do you know what that Godzilla movie was? Actually, that's a lie. That's a lie. I saw Godzilla versus Kong. No, wow, big lie there. Holy shit! I just realized I actually have seen three Godzilla movies. Okay, my first Godzilla movie was the 1998 movie with Matthew Broderick. You had Puff Daddy on the soundtrack with featuring Jimmy Page doing "Come with Me." Walk with me. No, what was it? The Kashmir thing. Yeah, walk with me, come with me, something like that. Um, as well as and Jacob Dylan, the Wallflowers. They did their cover of David Bowie's Heroes, which was actually a pretty good cover. And it's funny because my friend Charlie Fitz, shout out to Charlie Fitz, he made a mention that Steven Spielberg, huge Godzilla fan. Obviously, you look at Jaws, you look at Jurassic Park, which is what he was saying in his comment. You can see that Steven Spielberg has taken a note out of Godzilla's playbook, and that has clearly been reciprocated in the new Godzilla Minus One movie because there is some wonderful Jaws, Jurassic Park type stuff going on in there, and it's great. But sidebar to that, going back to the 1998 Godzilla movie, that was my first Godzilla experience and my only Godzilla experience for close to maybe 20 years, actually, because I don't think I saw another Godzilla movie until Bryan Cranston. When Bryan Cranston was in that Godzilla movie, I was like, okay, if Bryan Cranston is in a Godzilla movie, I'm going to check it out because I love me some Bryan Cranston. I'll watch Bryan Cranston open a piece of mail and read the phone book if I have to. So that was, that made sense to me. And then my son, who loves Godzilla type stuff, and I would have taken it to him. I would have taken him to this one, but the fact that it was 2 hours long, he's 8 years old, and it's in Japanese with subtitles. Now, we've watched the entirety of Dragon Ball Z up to the Frieza saga with subtitles, but we did that in 20-minute chunks, 20 40-minute chunks, an episode here, an episode there. The discipline for an 8-year-old to sit and watch that, I feel like he needs to be a few years older before he eventually watches Godzilla Minus One. Mind you, he loves Alien Resurrection. He loves all the Predator movies. He likes Aliens. It's funny, actually. I didn't show him Alien or Alien 3 because I realized that those would be harder for him to watch at his age. He was more receptive and more interested in watching Aliens and Alien Resurrection because those were the more action-packed movies. And at that age, you need a little excitement kind of happening all the time while, Alien takes a while to build and it's more somber. So was Alien 3. I don't know why we're talking about that. This is a Godzilla episode. Point being is that I've seen Godzilla with Bryan Cranston. I've seen Godzilla versus Kong, whatever it is called, King of the Monsters, and then Godzilla Minus One. But Godzilla Minus One is, I think, my first, those movies are kind of like crossover movies. They're in a monster world, right? Like those are kind of crossover movies. This movie is like this is by the Toho studio, Toho, not Tahoe, Toho studio, which is known for the Godzilla movies, right? And I learned at the beginning of the pre-roll of watching this that there's several different eras of Godzilla. That, you had the original one that went from 54 to 75. Then there's a 9-year gap. 84, they're starting a new era. And then there was another era that started in 2000. And I guess Hollywood's big stab at that was with that Godzilla movie from 98, which, to go back to the Steven Spielberg thing, very much devolves into a velociraptor chase with the baby Godzillas halfway through the movie, right? That was my whole point by saying that. So it's not a good judge of Godzilla. Now, here's my take on Godzilla personally. I've never been interested in Godzilla because it always seemed like a one-note thing. I'm not saying that Godzilla doesn't have any depth to it. It just seems like the monster, he comes, he attacks the city, the people fight back, or Godzilla has to defend everybody against monsters. I've never been into kaijus, man. They never did it for me. I did like the Pacific Rim movie that Guillermo del Toro did. I thought that was that's why I went, because GDT was doing his version of kaiju. That worked for me incredibly well. Because it included giant robots too. I don't know. It just where I was able to get more sucked into that. But I know that Godzilla, and the Godzilla verse and all the different eras and things, there's a rabid fan base for Godzilla stuff, man. Shin Godzilla, like all these different Godzilla movies and this, that, and the other. But it's just never been my bag. But there was so much hype from so many different people online that I was like, man, I think this is the perfect final film. That's not the final film. I'll be back to don't worry, I will be back to the Alamo. I'm trying this Movie Pass 2.0 thing for a while. I want to see if that will work better than what currently, for anybody who doesn't know, or for anybody who gives a shit. My beef with the Alamo is that they play trailers to movies that they don't show in the theater. I pay $20 a month to see as many movies as I want at the Alamo, but the selection can be so bland sometimes. And there are so many movies that they play trailers for that they never end up booking at my location. Sometimes they'll play in the city, but I'm not going to go to the city. Like I specifically, and the other thing too, is by getting the season pass, that is me committing to solely patroning the Alamo. I don't go to other movie theaters. So if I have to go to another movie theater to see a movie that, was promised at the Alamo, but by a trailer, because a trailer is a promise. That's been my catchphrase, man. A trailer is a promise. I don't care if that's what the studios want. I don't care if it's a scheme to make money on the side to keep the doors open. If you play a movie trailer, I expect that movie is going to show up at your theater. And if it doesn't, that's a real cock tease, man. That's in addition to not advertising what you are showing. I mean, it's a shit show. And so it's not that I don't want to go to the Alamo anymore. I want more. I want to be a free agent. I want to be open to be going any which way out. I want to go to other places, right? So my final movie with my season pass, I was like, well, I'm going to go check out Godzilla Minus One, because everybody's telling me that, I've been hearing all sorts of things. What really has actually sold me? What really sold me on seeing Godzilla Minus One is the fact that it's a movie. It's a human interest movie. It's a World War II, a post-World War II human interest film that happens to have Godzilla in it, instead of the other way around. And that was the thing that sold me. And I'm here to say, after coming out of the theater, that could not be more true. It is so, and for me, Godzilla really just was the personification of ominous threat of existence. It didn't really matter what Godzilla was. Godzilla could have been anything. What made that movie work were the characters. And as I said, after I came out of the movie, just the humanity of it all. I wept many times. I got so choked up watching this movie. The characters were so lovable, and the stakes are so high. And you know what it does more than anything, and there's a reason why the title of this video is actually called Godzilla Minus Oppenheimer and not just Godzilla Minus One. And that's because while I was watching this movie, I could not stop thinking about Oppenheimer, which I had seen over the summer. And, I really enjoyed Oppenheimer, and we're going to get back to Oppenheimer in a minute. But I thought that Oppenheimer was missing a very crucial, very necessary element to the story that they were telling and what they were doing. And I found that element here in, Godzilla Minus One. So it made sense to me to sort of include that in this video, but I'll get to that in a second. What is Godzilla Minus One? I guess it's kind of a retelling. And this goes back to, remember how I said that, I think Godzilla is really just sort of like a one note thing. Godzilla is very much like, excuse me. Godzilla is very much like Halloween. This is a hot take that's sure to burn the roof of anybody's mouth. This is a hot take that nobody wants. That's going to burn the roof of whoever takes a bite out of it. Godzilla is very much like Michael Myers and Halloween. It's like this one note thing that has been done countless times over and over again. Yes, I know that the movies just, they expand, there's different monsters, but it all boils down to the same formula. And it's a type of, I don't know. And that's the reason why I've never found interesting. And to that same coin, on the other side of that coin, I've never really found Halloween that interesting. I don't really, as I've said so many times on the channel, I don't really care for all the Halloween sequels. It's just like kind of whatever. It's just, I don't know. They always try to do something unique. And like in the same way that, we're going to make Godzilla fly. We're going to make him funny. We're going to give him a son. It's like you're taking this one note thing, in my opinion. You're taking this one, and this is somebody who hasn't seen the whole series. So I really sound like a know-it-all asshole for saying it. But it's just taking a one note thing and dressing it up with gimmicks instead of exploring it from different points of view, I would say. And the thing that I love, and the reason why I'm glad to have seen Godzilla Minus One, is that, I really think that, I guess this is really the definitive story of Godzilla. Godzilla rising out of the sea after the Second World War. And so I love that this movie takes place. It is a period piece. It begins with the end of World War II in 1945. And really sort of tells the story from the only place that the story, apart from wanting to see giant kaijus fighting and smashing buildings, this is like the original place that the story comes from is the best place to tell the story. It's the best story to tell. And like, if I don't, like, there clearly is going to, spoilers, there's probably going to be another Godzilla continuation of the story. I don't think I have any interest, man. Like, I love this movie. I gave this 5 stars on Letterboxd. Fucking movie of the year. This was the movie of the year. But I don't need to know I don't need to continue the story. I think the story is so good and so perfect. It's just fine the way it is. Like, in fact, there are 2 things that they tack on at the end of the story where I'm almost like, damn, cut off the movie right here. Leave those 2 other things off. I don't need them. The happy ending, it could end right here. And I understand why that can't happen, because that's sort of indicative of what atomic energy and, what the technology has spelled for mankind for the last however many decades. Just this, it's opened up this box of perpetual doom, sort of Damocles hanging over our heads forever, because we had to split the atom. So it's kind of like the thing, it's never going to die. It's here forever. Radiation, all of the radiation poisoning is here for as long as we're here, right? So it's kind of like you can't you can't really close it off after the first movie. But for me, I'm like, man, just leave it right there. But basically, you got a failed kamikaze pilot. By the way, this is directed and written and had visual effects done by this guy named Takashi Yamazaki. I'm sorry if I'm butchering his name. This guy's a fucking genius. I haven't seen any of his other movies, but he deserves Oscars. I mean, he should be given every Oscar there is to give for Godzilla Minus One. He is worthy. He is worthy of it all, man. I mean, just really, truly, this was a magnificent, magnificent story. And the key was never, you know what's funny? The key to this story and the success of this movie has absolutely nothing to do with Godzilla and everything to do with the human story underneath. Like I said, the humanity that is oozing in the story. So you got a kamikaze pilot, and basically he's basically a reluctant kamikaze, and he ends up not doing his thing, and he lives with this guilt. I don't want it's not complicated, but it's a mouthful to explain it all. But basically, he has an early encounter with Godzilla that leaves a bunch of mechanics dead. What's so interesting to me, and what was so important about the story, is that it shows you the Japanese people outside of being the ominous Axis powers of World War II. Instead of just like, this is the evil enemy that we need to vanquish. It's like, no, these are humans. We're all humans, and we all are forced into doing things that our government wants to do. In his case, be a kamikaze pilot. I've read about the kamikaze pilots. It's really, man, there's yet to be a really good film, at least that as far as I know, that really I feel like Clint Eastwood would. I know he did the Iwo Jima movie. I would love to see somebody just tackle full on without any Godzilla kaijus. Although I think this movie handles it quite well. Like a real historically accurate piece about what kamikazes were and the reluctance of some of the kamikazes that were given this mission. Some might say the ultimate mission when it comes to fighting war, right? Giving your life for your country with honor in the worst kind of way. I don't know. But basically, I thought it was such a wonderful choice to use a kamikaze pilot as the protagonist. It just, you know what it was? The message to me that I got while watching this is that, you know, humans, people, we all live in countries. We're all loyal to our countries. We all, you know, sometimes we are forced into things that our governments want us to do in the name of, you know, their ultimate objectives and goals. I'm trying to be very careful about how I talk about this stuff. It's very, very heavy stuff. And, you know, one of those things that's really heavy, and I guess, you know, one of the things that's, you know, comes with the story, that Godzilla is the fallout of this story, is the idea that America dropped these two bombs on Japan, you know, on Hiroshima and what was it? Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I think it was. And just the idea, all the civilian life that was taken. And, you know, ultimately, like, you know, here's the weird thing about war in general, in real life and movies, whatever. Like, I think just war, when you boil war down to like its most bare minimum, the thing about war and civilian safety are not always aligned. They're almost never aligned. And one always ends up, one is always at the expense of the other. In this case, war always tramples on civilians on whatever side and whichever way, no matter whose government is doing what, or this, that, and the other. And that brings me kind of to Oppenheimer, the Oppenheimer piece of this, where I was thinking about Oppenheimer while I was watching this movie, and I really enjoyed Oppenheimer. And what Oppenheimer does, and what I think after watching this movie, I feel like this movie is really it's sort of like the response to Oppenheimer. I know that sounds crazy. How could a historical, how could a science fiction kaiju movie be monster movie be the response to a historical biopic World War II drama by Christopher Nolan? And that's because this movie, it from that point of view, the enemy is never in Oppenheimer. The enemy that this bomb is being designed to use on is never seen. We never see the enemy at all. And we are made to experience what was, I say this with quotes, necessary. And I just want to say, I am so not even going to try and tackle or wrestle that question of whether dropping those bombs was necessary, because dropping bombs on civilians is wrong. Even I better just keep my mouth shut. I'm wading into territory that I don't want to weigh in on, because it's just too hard to talk about. But the point is to get back to the point is that innocent civilians have a face, and that face is not shown or recognized or represented at all. The Japanese people were not represented at all in Oppenheimer, and they needed to be. It was the missing element that truly kept that movie from being great. And instead, it feels like this rationalization and justification for dropping this weapon of mass destruction on a population, right? And I even said, I did a mini review of Oppenheimer, and I said in my mini review, what would have really helped Oppenheimer work, and what we get in spades in Godzilla Minus One, I needed to see the life of somebody in Japan at that time in Hiroshima, just living their life, their normal life, like nothing is going on. Like they're not fighting in the war. They're not, they're not doing this. They're not doing that. They're just in their world. And then their world ends when the bomb is dropped. You know what I mean? Like, and that we as an audience have invested in so much into their life, because each one of those people had a life. You know what I mean? And that was missing. Instead, we just hear that the war is over. It's so unbelievably sanitized for something that's so just so disgusting and dirty and fucked up. You know what I mean? And it's sort of like America's way of explaining to itself, well, we had to do this. And I've read a lot about this, and I've read a lot about the reasons why, and why, that millions of people on both sides their lives were spared because these bombs were dropped. And that at the end of the day, a bunch of people behind doors basically weighed numbers of people. That's what they did. They were like, this many people are here and this many people are here, and we can sacrifice this many people to save this many people. And I'm so not here to tell you what is right or wrong in any which way, just in the way that there are current conflicts going on that are just so devastating and tangled and fucked up right now. And there's so much it's so hard to speak on any of it, publicly. But what Godzilla Minus One does is it all that Oppenheimer stuff basically gets transformed into a giant fucking dinosaur, right? And we are really unconcerned with, Godzilla is such a, he's such a like minuscule element of the story of people doing whatever they can to defend themselves. Takashi does a fantastic job of weaving in, historic things. Like, for instance, they mentioned the tension between the beginning of the Cold War, and the tension between the US and Russia, and how they need to both stay out of the region because it could ignite war between Russia and the United States. And so they're kind of left to their own devices. And, one of the overarching themes is that, you know, the Japanese, the United States, and all governments are not going to help the people. They're not there to help the people. The people need to help themselves. And it's kind of beautiful how they all come together to hatch a plan to finally put Godzilla to bed, or they attempt to. And they fold the kamikaze element back in real well. I mean, it just was a perfect movie on every conceivable level. I really don't have any criticism except that, like I said, I don't need the ending. Here's the thing. I don't need to see another one, and I don't need the last two things at the end of the end. Like, just give me this one movie and this one experience. And this experience, like I said, there were so many times where I got so emotional over the, spoilers if you haven't seen it yet. But like, the kamikaze pilot is tortured by, he's still fighting a war. I thought it was such a brilliant metaphor. I think that's what happens to a lot of people with PTSD, man. It's like you may not be fighting the war anymore, but your body is still reacting, still fighting the war on a cellular level. And it's like he was still fighting a war somewhere, and he couldn't be with the girl for that reason. He couldn't be the dad to Akiko for that reason. And he needed permission. And there was only one person who he felt that he had failed on the island in the opening of the movie. He needed permission. And when he says to the guy, he shows him, he's like, you can he basically says, you can still be the kamikaze pilot, but you don't have to die. You can live. And that the idea is that we're not fighting a war of death. We're fighting a war to live for our future. I mean, it was just so beautiful to me. It was so wonderful. It just, sort of changed everything. And the idea that the mechanic says to him, he says just this one word, he says, live. And I lost it, man. I'm getting emotional just thinking about it right now. He tells the kamikaze pilot, live, just live, man. You don't have to die. I thought, because this kamikaze pilot is like the only way that he could be at peace. The only way that he could put things right is that he has to sacrifice his life for everybody. And then it just turned into this beautiful movie where he gets the, and the movie's very predictable. Like, you can call everything that happens, you can call from a mile away. That, I mean, I had a feeling that the girl wasn't. I'm a big proponent of no body, no dead. That's no death. That's the rule. If you don't see somebody die, then they are not dead. Or how about this? Not necessarily that they're not dead, but that they can always come back. So if you don't see somebody die, they can always come back. And that happened with the girl. And it's just so beautiful, man. Like, he comes back and we see the wreckage of where he's from. All the wreckage, the war is over. We've lost the war. Our houses are destroyed. My parents are dead. And he has nothing. And slowly, he starts to gain. He starts to, they rebuild the house. He becomes a family. I mean, it's just so pretty. It's so not pretty. Pretty's not the right word. It's just, it really makes you invested. And for that, like I said, the Godzilla actually smashing stuff was kind of kept to a minimum. It happens like 2 or 3 times in the movie, and the movie's 2 hours long, and Godzilla only smashes things in 2 or 3 different sequences, and that's about it. To me, that's, I think, what has made it so successful, because it gave us something to latch onto besides the meaningless destruction that a kaiju can perform. I know that there are some people out there that that's what they show up for. They show up for that, but not me. In the same way that, like, I love the idea that Michael Myers is the boogeyman, and that sometimes there's no reason why the boogeyman comes after you, and you just have to survive the night. And I'm like, that rocks. I love that. That's really cool. But, like, I don't need to see that 9 or 10 times. I don't need to see that remade. I don't need to see that. You know what I mean? The idea of the atomic fallout from World War II from the perspective of the Japanese personified in a giant fucking kaiju. That's fucking, man, that's great. Give me that one story. And I love, oh my God, all the characters. You had so much, going back to what my friend Charlie Fitz said, you had that fucking Jaws stuff. They're sitting there and they're discussing how they're going to dispatch Godzilla. They're going to use Freon gas to sink him down into a trench and use, there was all this science and pseudoscience. And then we're going to use the stealth bomber or stealth plane that was never actually used in the war. But, it's broken. We need a good mechanic. Oh, let's fold back in. Now we have to call back the mechanic from the opening of the movie, who is the holder of the mission of guilt, who's the only person who can give our lead character, Shikishima, I think is how you say it, release of his guilt by telling him you got to live. And when you see him hear over the radio that he did live, he's relieved, because he's kind of like, initially you think like, oh, he's getting him to do this because he says, hey, I'm going to do the kamikaze thing. It's just beautiful, man. The whole thing is beautiful. It's a beautiful movie. It's one of those movies where it's so crazy because it's like totally, it's a war movie and it's an anti-war movie all at the same time. And, you can look at Oppenheimer as being both a war movie and an anti-war movie too. But the difference is that Oppenheimer doesn't look at the human cost and the human life that was taken in that situation. And, Godzilla Minus One, looks at it with a fucking magnifying glass, and the thing is too, it's a PG-13 movie. You really don't see, there's so much mayhem. Lots of people die in this movie. And yet they really do kind of keep the actual visceral carnage to a bare minimum for that PG-13 movie. And, here's the big takeaway from the success of Godzilla Minus One. And that is, you have Toho. I hope I'm saying that right. I think Toho is the studio, right? Who put up the money. Somebody put up the money. This movie cost $15 million. This 2-hour kaiju period piece epic, World War II epic, was made for $15 million, man. And it's doing really well at the box office. It's made its budget back several times, right? Over. And it's just, if anything, it's sort of like the ultimate embarrassment of American movie making, of Hollywood. The Hollywood system is we're number one, right? Like, we're supposed to be at the top, the pinnacle of this sort of this production of movies. That's not to say that world cinema is not important. Every country produces its own cinema, but just that, one of our leading exports as a country is our entertainment, right? Like, that's what I mean when I say that. And the idea that, like, we're so misguided. America is so misguided with streaming and how it treats movie theaters, and just like the bloating of budgets and the spending on marketing. And it's like the humility that this movie has, Godzilla Minus Zero, the humility that it has in doing all of this with $15 million. It's an embarrassment to every Marvel movie that didn't make money. And the reason why it didn't make money, it's not that it didn't make money. It's all those Marvel movies have made 10 times probably what Godzilla Minus One has made. It's just the fact that they all cost anywhere from 150 to 200 to 250 to $300 million, and aren't nearly as engaging or exciting or engrossing as this simple, humble $15 million film that by American standards would be considered to be not even a mid-budget film, right? Like a mid-budget film, not a big budget films. I think you have to cross over $100 million. Most mid-budget films, I don't know if mid-budget's the right word, but whatever. They're anywhere from 30, 40, $50 million. I mean, they're not made anymore either. Because apparently, at least according to American mentality, is the only way to make The only way to make millions of dollars is to spend hundreds of millions of dollars and then spend hundreds of millions of dollars more on marketing. And that's the only way. It just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. It's a sticky thing. It's a sticky thing. And you know what else is sticky? Stickers. That's right. Riot stickers. And you might notice something interesting about the scroller down here below. You'll notice it no longer says 79. It now says 69. And the reason why it says 69 is because we have now changed the price on the very special Frumess deal. For $69, you can get 1,000 stickers from riotstickers.com. And for $79, you can get 200 die-cast stickers from riotstickers.com. That is an unbelievable bargain, man. The links are down in the description. You are not going to find better deals than that. I mean, Sharpie Riot, CEO Sharpie Riot, he must be like Crazy Eddie, man. He must be insane to have prices like these. So check out Riot stickers. They're UV coated to protect them from the sun. They've got a nice vinyl. They're printed on vinyl, which protects them from the water. You can't go wrong with riotstickers.com. Let's play a little video, and we will get back to our discussion about Godzilla minus Oppenheimer.
Posters and promo cards, there's nothing we can't print for you. From stage backdrops to bass drum heads, we can print on shirts, we can print on hats, we can print on pants. Cheap prices and high quality, quick turnaround times and free shipping. We also offer free artwork support, great customer service, and so much more. We are the bomb. Riotstickers.com. Riot stickers, we are the bomb. Riotstickers.com. Riot stickers, we are the bomb. Riotstickers.com. Riot stickers, we are the bomb.
And we are back. We are back. We are talking about Godzilla Minus One, and we are also talking about Oppenheimer. Yeah, so it's interesting how these two movies, and you know, there was a great review on letterbox.com that where this guy really nails it on the head. I'm going to read what this guy wrote here in regards to both of these movies. He really sums up a lot of my feelings and what I was thinking, and I think it's necessary to read what he wrote here. So this is from a guy named Matt with an exclamation point. And here is his review for Godzilla Minus One. Two films now in 2023 have dared to examine the fallout and societal implications of World War II's nuclear exclamation point. One, a hard-hitting social drama chronicling years in the life of a man broken and haunted by his own failure to prevent the darkness and devastation that enveloped the world following the introduction of the atomic bomb and the inadvertent opening of a door to an endless plague of hopelessness and destruction set upon future generations, which I guess is why you need to have that, what's at the end of this movie needs to be that for that reason. But I still hate it. I still don't like it. I want it to just end and be wrapped up and that's it. A film which truly encapsulates the sheer power, abject terror, and the subsequent futility that humankind was forced to face in the wake of its own unimaginable creation. A story, this guy's a great writer, a story told through the eyes of determined engineers, scientists, and soldiers gathered in the name of nationalism to nobly save their culture and civilization as they knew it from a raw, monstrous horrors to which they had borne witness, an ambiguous resolution to the inevitable humanist clash between blind optimism and bleak reality. And there's a character in this movie, and I forget it, Mr. Noro, I think is his name. Let's see if I could find it. Let me see if I could find his name. Noda, Mr. Noda, played by Hitaka Yoshioka as Kenji Noda. and he plays a former naval weapons engineer. And he is the characters. The characters are really great, but this guy is just he's like Matt Hooper from Jaws and John Hammond. There's a little bit of John Hammond in him, minus the greed and ego. He's like literally, he is the heart. There's so much heart in this guy. And he's got glasses, his little spectacles that make him the egghead kind of guy. And then there's two other guys, and I forget their names. There's one guy. There's one guy who's one of the crew members, because they disable mines from World War II, and he was too young to have enlisted in World War II, and he instead is he's eager to go to battle. And I love the way that the main dude, the kamikaze guy, is like never want that, never wish that. And then there's the other guy who's kind of like, he's kind of a little aggro. I don't know. They just make a great team. They make a great team. That's the point. They make a great team. All in all, man, I can't recommend Godzilla Minus One enough. I don't know. I definitely am going to see more Takashi Yamazaki movies, but I don't think I need more Godzilla. Like, this was the perfect amount of Godzilla for me. And it was because there wasn't very much Godzilla, and I just felt overwhelmed. And like I said, what would have elevated Oppenheimer to be an even greater film, per my mini review that I did over the summer, this movie further solidifies, like, we needed to see the Japanese face, the Japanese cost of the atomic bomb, and we didn't get that. And for that, to me, Oppenheimer will never be the masterpiece that Godzilla Minus One is, and the two are ultimately comparable for that reason. I mean, again, look at Matt's review. Matt's review was so perfect because I just realized I didn't even finish reading it. He says he said that whole thing. He said, I saw two movies. The first one was everything that I read, and the second one is Oppenheimer. Personally, I kind of prefer the one with the giant fire-breathing sea lizard that eats battleships and levels ceilings, meaning that, like, it's funny how both of these movies, he basically is doing what Quentin Tarantino did in what's it called? In Inglourious Bastards, where Tarantino, in my opinion, in one of the most brilliant scenes he ever wrote, where he's describing the plot of King Kong, for somebody to guess what the what's on his forehead, the card, and he's describing the plot of King Kong. No, sorry, he's describing the plot of the King Kong, and then the response is actually no. It is it was Africans taken prisoner and brought to America to be enslaved. And I thought, oh my God, like what parallels that I never saw that were, I don't know, just kind of blew my mind. The notion of the subtext of what is being said underneath King Kong is fascinating, really fascinating to me. And that's something that Tarantino, and that's what Matt's review is kind of doing, the same thing that Tarantino does in Inglourious Bastards in this way. That's it. That's all I got. Go see this. Go see Godzilla Minus One. I mean, immediately. Like, do not wait. And can we get back to this style of filmmaking where we use $15 million like it's, $300 million and tell really great stories with it? Because that would be nice. That would be really nice. Peace, hair grease. We'll catch you later.